Marcus Thompson shifted uncomfortably in his first-class seat, his Italian leather shoes tapping in irregular rhythm against the carpet. Even the premium champagne couldn't calm his nerves. The past week had been brutal, 3 major acquisitions, countless board meetings, and now this last-minute flight to Chicago for another potential deal. At 42, Marcus had everything he'd dreamed of as a young man starting his tech company in his garage. His net worth had just crossed the 9-figure mark, his company was revolutionizing artificial intelligence, and his face had graced the cover of Forbes twice this year alone. Yet something felt hollow about it all. He closed his laptop, rubbing his temples. The headache that had been threatening all morning was finally making its presence known. A flight attendant appeared at his side, offering another glass of Dom Perignon, but he waved it away. What he needed was sleep, not more alcohol. Just as he was about to put on his sleep mask, a familiar laugh cut through the quiet hum of the cabin. Marcus froze. He knew that laugh, had fallen in love with it 15 years ago in a small coffee shop in Boston. It was the same laugh that had filled their first apartment, the same one that had echoed through their wedding reception. Sarah. His heart started racing as he slowly turned his head toward the sound. There she was, 5 rows ahead, helping 2 children settle into their seats. But these weren't just any children. They were Jack and Emma, their twins. His twins. The ones he hadn't seen in person for almost 6 years. The world seemed to tilt on its axis as he watched Sarah expertly handle their luggage, her movements as graceful as he remembered. Her hair was shorter now, styled in a professional bob that suited her, but her smile, that hadn't changed at all. The twins, now 11, were almost unrecognizable from the kindergartners in the last photo he'd seen. Marcus sank lower in his seat, his mind racing. What were the odds? Of all the flights, all the cities? He'd carefully orchestrated his life to avoid exactly this kind of encounter, choosing to pay child support and alimony through his lawyers, communicating only through emails and occasional video calls on birthdays. Emma's voice carried clearly through the cabin. Mom, can I have the window seat? I want to see the clouds. The sound of his daughter's voice, so much more grown-up than he remembered, sent a sharp pain through his chest. Jack, always the more reserved one, was quietly reading a book, just like Sarah used to do on their flights together. Memories flooded back unbidden. Sarah's face when he'd missed the twins' 5th birthday for an investor meeting. The hurt in her eyes when he'd forgotten their anniversary for the 3rd year in a row. The final argument where she told him he was choosing his company over his family. He defended himself, saying he was building their future, securing their children's legacy. She'd replied that their children needed a father more than they needed a trust fund. Now, watching them settle in for the flight, Marcus realized with crushing clarity that Sarah had been right. His empire meant nothing if he couldn't share it with the people who mattered most. His success had cost him everything that truly mattered. The plane began its taxi to the runway, and Marcus remained frozen in his seat, his mind racing with possibilities. Should he make his presence known? Try to talk to them? Or stay hidden, avoiding the awkwardness and potential drama? For the first time in years, Marcus Thompson, the man known for always knowing exactly what to do, was completely and utterly lost. The plane leveled off at cruising altitude, but Marcus's thoughts remained turbulent. He pulled out his phone, opening his gallery to a folder he hadn't touched in years. There it was, the last family photo they'd taken together. Christmas morning 6 years ago. The twins were 5, still in their matching pajamas, surrounded by torn wrapping paper. Sarah was sitting on the floor with them, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. And he was checking his phone, half turned away from the scene. He hadn't even been present for their last happy moment together. A quiet ding from ahead drew his attention. Jack had turned on his reading light, the soft glow illuminating his face. Marcus's breath caught. The boy looked just like him at that age, down to the serious expression as he turned each page. Emma was already fast asleep against the window, her dark hair falling across her face just like Sarah's used to. The memories came rushing back, sharp and clear as broken glass. That fatal night when everything fell apart. He'd promised to be home for the twins' school play, their first starring roles. They were doing Peter Pan, Emma as Wendy, Jack as John. He'd sworn to Sarah he wouldn't miss it, had even bought a new video camera to record the whole thing. But then the call came. Their biggest potential investor was in town, unexpectedly, with only a 2-hour window to meet. The same investor who would later help push their company valuation past $1 billion. He'd told himself he'd try to make it to at least the end of the play. He remembered typing the text to Sarah with trembling fingers. Emergency investor meeting. Start without me. We'll try to make it. She hadn't responded. By the time he'd rushed to the school, the auditorium was empty. A single janitor was sweeping the stage. He'd driven home, rehearsing explanations, justifications, promises to make it up to them. But when he walked through the door, the silence had hit him like a physical force. Sarah was sitting at the kitchen table, still in her dress from the play. 2 paper plate awards, Best Wendy and Best John, lay in front of her. The twins were already in bed. They kept looking at the door, she'd said quietly, not meeting his eyes. Every time it opened they'd look. Until they stopped looking at all. He'd started to explain about the investor, about the opportunity, about securing their future. But Sarah had simply stood up, placed the paper plate awards in front of him, and said, "Their future was tonight, Marcus. And you missed it?" Now, watching Jack turn another page of his book, Marcus wondered what his son was reading. Did he still love adventure stories? Did Emma still insist on pancakes shaped like Mickey Mouse? Did they ever ask about him? Did they hate him? The fasten seatbelt sign dinged off and several passengers stood to stretch. Sarah got up too, probably heading to the restroom. She would have to walk past his seat. Marcus's heart began to race. Should he pretend to be asleep? Should he look up? What do you say to the woman whose heart you broke, to the family you left behind in pursuit of success? As her footsteps drew closer, Marcus gripped his armrest, his knuckles turning white. 6 years of carefully maintained distance was about to collapse in the confines of this airplane cabin, and he had absolutely no idea what to do about it. Sarah's steps grew closer, her heels making soft thuds against the carpet. Marcus could smell her perfume, still the same vanilla and jasmine she'd always worn. He kept his eyes fixed on his laptop screen, but the words blurred together as she passed. Then she stopped. The silence stretched for what felt like an eternity before her voice, soft but steady, broke it. "Marcus?" He looked up, meeting her eyes for the first time in 6 years. The professional mask he'd perfected over countless board meetings crumbled instantly. "Sarah," he managed, his voice barely a whisper. She looked different up close, more confident, somehow. Success suited her. He'd heard through mutual friends that she'd made partner at her law firm last year. "I didn't expect to see you here," she said, her tone carefully neutral. "Chicago deal?" he replied automatically, then winced at how corporate he sounded. I'm heading to Chicago for work. The twins, they've grown so much." A flash of something, pain? Anger? Crossed Sarah's face at the mention of the children. "Yes, they have. That's what children do when you're not looking." The words hit him like a physical blow, but he deserved them. Before he could respond, Emma's voice carried down the aisle. "Mom? Can I have my tablet?" Sarah's expression shifted, softening as she turned toward their daughter's voice. But before she could move, Emma appeared at her side, stopping mid-stride when she saw Marcus. Time seemed to freeze as daughter and father stared at each other. Emma's eyes, his eyes, widened in recognition. She'd been looking at his Forbes cover just last month, Sarah would later tell him. "Dad?" Emma's voice was small, uncertain, so different from the confident tone she'd used earlier. She took a half step forward, then stopped, looking up at Sarah as if for permission or confirmation. Sarah placed a gentle hand on Emma's shoulder. "Yes, sweetheart. It's your father." Marcus stood slowly, his heart pounding. "Hi, Emma," he said softly. "You've gotten so tall." Emma's lower lip trembled slightly. "I'm in 6th grade now," she said, then added, almost accusingly, "You missed my science fair." "I won 1st place." "Emma," Sarah warned gently, but Marcus shook his head. "No, she's right," he said. "I did miss it. I've missed a lot of things." He knelt down to Emma's eye level, aware of other passengers pretending not to watch. "I'm so sorry, sweetheart. And congratulations on winning 1st place. What was your project about?" Before Emma could answer, Jack appeared behind them, his book clutched to his chest like a shield. He didn't say anything, just stared at Marcus with an intensity that reminded him painfully of himself. The family tableau they created in the middle of the first-class cabin was simultaneously perfect and heartbreaking. Everything he'd walked away from, everything he'd told himself he was too busy to miss, standing right in front of him. Sarah cleared her throat. "We should get back to our seats," she said quietly. The turbulence light just came on. Emma looked like she wanted to protest, but Jack was already turning away. Marcus watched as his son's shoulders stiffened, a gesture so familiar it made his chest ache. He'd seen that same defensive posture in the mirror countless times during his own childhood, after his own father had disappointed him yet again. As Sarah ushered the children back to their seats, she paused and turned back to Marcus. "We're staying at the Peninsula," she said, her voice low enough that the kids couldn't hear. "If you'd like to, if you want to talk." Room 1508. Then she was gone, leaving Marcus standing there, the ghost of vanilla and jasmine lingering in the air. He sank back into his seat, his mind racing. The Peninsula. Room 1508. A chance to talk, to explain, to apologize, or maybe just to make things worse. The choice was his, just like it had been 6 years ago. But this time he knew he couldn't afford to make the wrong decision. If you're enjoying this video and want more content like this, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. That way you won't miss out on any of the amazing stories we have coming up. Your support really helps the channel grow and keeps us bringing you more of what you love. Thank you. The remainder of the flight passed in a blur of turbulent thoughts. Marcus barely touched his meal, pushing the grilled salmon around his plate while stealing glances at his family 5 rows ahead. Jack hadn't gone back to his book. Instead, he sat rigid in his seat, staring straight ahead, his jaw set in a way that made him look far older than 11. Emma, on the other hand, kept turning around to look at him until Sarah gently reminded her to stay seated. Each time their eyes met, Marcus saw a mixture of curiosity and hurt that made his chest tighten. She'd always been the more expressive one, even as a toddler. His phone buzzed. Another email from the Chicago office about tomorrow's meeting. Marcus stared at the screen, the words meaningless. Just yesterday this deal had been everything. Now it felt trivial compared to the weight of room number 1508 looming in his mind. The flight attendant's voice crackled over the intercom, announcing their descent into Chicago. As the plane tilted downward, Marcus remembered another flight 12 years ago. Sarah had been 6 months pregnant with the twins, and they'd flown to Boston to visit her parents. She'd been nervous about flying while pregnant, and he'd held her hand the entire time, making up ridiculous stories about the clouds to distract her. "See that one?" he'd said, pointing out the window. "Looks like 2 elephants doing the tango." She'd laughed, squeezing his hand. "You're terrible at this. It clearly looks like a hippo eating ice cream." They'd spent the rest of the flight inventing increasingly absurd cloud shapes, planning their future between bursts of laughter. They'd been so young, so full of hope, so certain they could have it all, the perfect marriage, the perfect family, the perfect career. The landing gear deployed with a thud, jolting Marcus back to the present. He watched as Sarah efficiently gathered the twins' belongings, her movements practiced and sure. She'd always been the organized one, the one who kept their lives running smoothly while he chased his dreams. As passengers began to stand and retrieve their luggage, Marcus remained seated, his mind racing. The Chicago deal would take 3 days. His calendar was packed with meetings, dinners, presentations. He could easily use that as an excuse not to go to the Peninsula. It would be safer, cleaner, less complicated. But then Jack stood up, and as he reached for his backpack, a book fell from his hands. Marcus caught a glimpse of the cover, The Hobbit. His heart skipped a beat. It was the same book he'd read at Jack's age, the same story that had taught him about adventure and courage and doing the right thing even when it was hard. Before he could stop himself, Marcus pulled out his phone and dialed his assistant's number. "Claire? I need you to clear my schedule for tonight. All of it. The dinner with the investors, the prep meeting, everything." He paused, watching as his family made their way toward the exit. Something more important came up. "But sir, the Anderson group flew in specifically to reschedule it. Offer them Cubs tickets, dinner at Alinea, whatever they want. This can't wait." He ended the call and slowly stood, grabbing his briefcase. The Chicago skyline was visible through the windows, its familiar towers reaching into the cloudy sky. Somewhere in that maze of steel and glass was the Peninsula Hotel, room 1508, and a chance he didn't deserve but desperately needed to take. As he followed his family's path down the aisle, Marcus remembered something his grandmother used to say: "Life gives you 3 chances to fix your biggest mistakes. The first time you're too young to notice. The second time you're too proud to try. The third time is your last chance." This felt like his last chance. And for the first time in 6 years, Marcus Thompson, the man who'd built an empire by always choosing work over everything else, was about to choose differently. The Peninsula's lobby was a symphony of marble and crystal, but Marcus barely noticed its grandeur as he paced near the elevators. He'd checked into his own room an hour ago, taken a shower, changed his suit, then changed it again, feeling ridiculous for caring so much about his appearance when there were so many more important things at stake. His phone hadn't stopped buzzing. The Anderson group was furious about the cancellation. His board members wanted explanations. His assistant had sent 14 increasingly concerned messages. He'd silenced them all. 4:47 p.m. He'd been standing here for 20 minutes, watching the elevator numbers change, trying to work up the courage to press the button for the 15th floor. A young couple walked past, holding hands and laughing, reminding him of another memory he tried to bury. "Do you think we'll still hold hands when we're old and gray?" Sarah had asked on their first anniversary as they'd walked through Central Park. "Longer than that," he promised. "We'll be that embarrassing couple in the retirement home, making all the other old folks jealous." Now, standing in this opulent lobby, that conversation felt like it had happened to someone else. Someone younger, someone who still believed in forever, someone who hadn't traded his family for a corner office and a spot on the Forbes list. 4:53 p.m. A bell chimed, and Marcus watched as another elevator arrived, disgorging a group of business people. He recognized one of them, the CEO of a rival tech company. The man nodded in his direction, probably expecting Marcus to come over and engage in the usual corporate small talk. Instead, Marcus turned and walked straight to the other elevator bank. Before he could second-guess himself again, he pressed the up button. The doors opened immediately, as if they'd been waiting for him to make this decision. Inside, he pressed 15, then caught his reflection in the mirrored walls. He looked exactly like what he was, a successful businessman in an expensive suit. But underneath that polished exterior, he felt like that nervous 26-year-old again, about to ask Sarah on their first date. The elevator stopped at the 12th floor. A woman got in with two young girls, probably around the twins' age. They were chattering about a movie they'd just seen, their excitement filling the small space. Marcus watched them in the mirror, remembering how Emma used to talk a mile a minute about everything and nothing, while Jack would listen intently, occasionally adding quiet, thoughtful comments. Floor 15. The doors opened. The woman and girls turned left. Room 1508 would be to the right. Marcus stood frozen in the elevator until a gentle ding reminded him that he needed to move. His feet felt heavy as he walked down the hallway, counting down the room numbers. 1516, 1514, 1512. At 1510 he heard it, Emma's laugh, muffled but unmistakable, followed by Jack's quieter voice saying something he couldn't make out. 1508. The number stared back at him, gold against dark wood. From inside he could hear movement, the sound of life continuing on the other side of the door. Life that had continued without him for 6 years. Marcus raised his hand to knock, then lowered it. Raised it again. Inside his pocket, his phone buzzed once more. Probably another angry investor, another $1 million opportunity slipping away. For the first time in his career he didn't care. He thought about turning around. He could go back to his room, bury himself in work, pretend this day never happened. Would be easier. Safer. The path he'd chosen so many times before. Instead, he took a deep breath, straightened his tie one last time and knocked on the door. The sounds inside immediately quieted. Footsteps approached, Sarah's, he knew instinctively. The handle turned, and Marcus Thompson, the man who'd faced down corporate raiders and hostile takeovers without blinking, felt his heart stop as the door began to open. The door opened, and there was Sarah, still in her travel clothes but with her hair slightly damp from a shower. For a moment they just looked at each other, the weight of 6 years hanging between them. "You came," she said finally, a hint of surprise in her voice. "I came," he echoed, then added softly, "I should have come a long time ago." Sarah's expression softened slightly, but before she could respond, Emma's voice rang out from inside the room. "Mom, who is it?" Then came the sound of running feet, and suddenly Emma was there, peering around her mother's arm. Her eyes widened. "Dad, you really came?" The genuine excitement in her voice made Marcus's throat tight. Behind her, Jack appeared in the doorway of what looked like the bedroom area, his face unreadable. "Would you like to come in?" Sarah asked formally, stepping aside. The suite was spacious, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a stunning view of the Chicago skyline. Homework was spread across the coffee table, math worksheets and what looked like a half-finished English essay. "We were just about to order room service," Sarah continued, closing the door behind him. "The twins have a competition tomorrow, so we came in a day early to—" "Piano competition," Jack interrupted, his voice quiet but firm. "At the Chicago Symphony Center." Marcus felt the words like a punch to the gut. He'd forgotten. The twins had been taking piano lessons since they were 4, another detail of their lives he'd pushed aside in pursuit of success. That's amazing," he managed. "Both of you are performing?" Emma nodded eagerly. "I'm playing Chopin. And Jack's doing Bach. We've been practicing for months. Are you going to come?" The hope in her voice was unbearable. Marcus glanced at Sarah, who gave a small nod. "I'd like to," he said carefully. "If that's okay with everyone." Jack finally moved from his spot by the bedroom door, walking to the window. "Why now?" he asked, his back to the room. Why show up now? The question hung in the air, heavy with 6 years of absence. Marcus took a deep breath, knowing his answer could change everything. Because I was wrong, he said simply. I told myself I was building something important, something that would give you both a better future. But I was really just running away. Running from being a father, from being present, from the possibility of failing at the most important job I'll ever have. He walked over to where Jack stood, careful to maintain some distance. I know I can't make up for lost time. I know I don't deserve a second chance. But seeing you all today, it made me realize that all my success means nothing if I can't share it with the people who matter most. Emma had moved closer to her brother, and Marcus could see tears in her eyes. Sarah remained by the door, her arms crossed, but her expression had softened further. We ordered pizza, Jack said suddenly, still looking out the window. Mom said we could have a cheat day before the competition. Do you still like pepperoni? The olive branch was small, tentative, but it was there. Marcus felt tears pricking at his own eyes. Yeah, buddy. I still like pepperoni. We got 2 pizzas, Emma chimed in, her voice brightening. And Mom said we could watch a movie while we eat. Maybe you could stay? Marcus looked at Sarah, who nodded again, this time with the ghost of a smile. I'd like that, he said. I'd like that very much. As Emma rushed to get the room service menu to show him all their choices, Marcus caught Sarah's eye. There was still hurt there, still walls built up over years of absence, but there was also something else. A glimmer of hope, maybe, or at least the possibility of forgiveness. Outside the window, the Chicago sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. Inside room 1508, a family fractured by ambition and absence was taking its first tentative steps toward healing. If you're enjoying this video and want more content like this, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. That way you won't miss out on any of the amazing stories we have coming up. Your support really helps the channel grow and keeps us bringing you more of what you love. Thank you. The pizzas arrived steaming hot, filling the suite with the aroma of melted cheese and spices. Emma had insisted on setting up what she called a proper dinner table using the room's desk, while Jack methodically arranged napkins and drinks. Some habits, Marcus noticed, hadn't changed. Emma still bounced with excitement, while Jack approached everything with careful precision. So, Marcus said, watching Emma pile her plate with slices, tell me about the competition tomorrow. What made you choose Chopin? Emma's face lit up. Mrs. Reynolds, she's our piano teacher, said I have expressive hands like Chopin wanted. I'm playing Nocturne in E-flat major. Want to hear a little bit? Before anyone could respond, she was already rushing to the digital piano keyboard they'd set up in the corner. Her fingers flew across the keys, producing a melody so beautiful it made Marcus's chest ache. This was what he'd missed. These moments of pure, unfiltered joy. That's incredible, Emma, he managed when she finished. You've become quite the musician. Jack's better, Emma said immediately, with the kind of loving competition only siblings could manage. He's playing Bach's Prelude in C major. It's super hard, but he makes it look easy. Jack ducked his head, but Marcus could see the slight smile tugging at his lips. It's not that hard, he mumbled, but there was pride in his voice. They practice 2 hours every day, Sarah added, her tone softening as she looked at their children. Rain or shine, good days or bad. They've never missed a session. The unspoken comparison hung in the air, unlike their father, who'd missed everything else. Marcus took a deep breath. I'd love to hear you play too, Jack. If you want to show me. Jack hesitated, then nodded slowly. He moved to the keyboard, and as his fingers touched the keys, Marcus was transported. The piece was complex, technical, but Jack played it with a sensitivity that belied his age. When he finished, the room was silent except for Emma's enthusiastic applause. That was beautiful, buddy, Marcus said softly. Mom recorded all our recitals, Jack said suddenly, still sitting at the keyboard. Did you ever watch them? The question caught Marcus off guard. The truth was, he had watched them late at night in his office when the weight of his choices became too heavy to bear. He'd watched their progress through pixelated videos, a digital father to digital children. I did, he admitted. Every single one. His voice cracked slightly. I have them all saved on my laptop. Sometimes when I can't sleep, I watch them and try to imagine I was there. Emma's hand found his arm. You'll be there tomorrow, right? For real this time? Marcus looked at Sarah, who was watching the scene with an unreadable expression. I've already canceled all my meetings, he said firmly. Wild horses couldn't keep me away. That's not a very realistic scenario, Jack pointed out, a hint of his old humor showing through. Wild horses in downtown Chicago? Everyone laughed, and for a moment it felt like old times. They fell into an easier conversation, the kids sharing stories about school, their friends, their music. Sarah occasionally added details, filling in the gaps of their lives that Marcus had missed. He learned that Emma had developed a passion for science just like him and was currently obsessed with marine biology. Jack had discovered coding and was building his own video game in his spare time. They both had their mother's intelligence and their father's drive, but thankfully, they seemed to have found a better balance than he ever had. As they talked and ate, Marcus noticed how Sarah had arranged their lives with careful precision. The twins' activities, their education, their development. She'd created stability from the chaos he'd left behind. The guilt was overwhelming, but there was something else too. A deep gratitude for the woman who'd held their family together when he'd let it fall apart. As the evening wore on, the twins' excitement began to fade, replaced by pre-competition nerves. Emma yawned mid-sentence while explaining her science project, and Jack's blinks grew longer between pages of the book he was reading. "Okay, you too," Sarah said, slipping effortlessly into mom mode. "Time for bed. You need to be well rested for tomorrow." For once, neither twin protested. Emma hugged Marcus impulsively, catching him off guard. "You'll still be here tomorrow?" she whispered against his shirt. "Front row," he promised, his voice rough with emotion. "I wouldn't miss it." Jack's goodnight was more reserved, a slight nod and a quiet night, Dad, but it was more than Marcus had dared to hope for. As Sarah helped them get ready for bed, Marcus stood by the window, watching the city lights flicker against the darkening sky. 20 minutes later, Sarah returned to the main room. "They're asleep," she said softly, joining him at the window. "Emma's probably going to be up half the night excited that you're here, but at least she's in bed." The silence between them was heavy with unspoken words. Marcus could smell her perfume again, bringing back 1,000 memories of quiet moments like this one. "Why did you invite me up here, Sarah?" he finally asked, his voice barely above a whisper. She was quiet for a long moment, watching the city below. "Because," she said finally, "when Emma saw you on that plane, her whole face lit up in a way I haven't seen in years. And Jack, he tried so hard to pretend he didn't care, but he couldn't stop looking at you." She turned to face him, her eyes glistening. "Do you know what he does, Marcus? Every time your company is in the news, every time you're on TV or in a magazine, he cuts out the article and keeps it in a box under his bed. He thinks I don't know, but I found it when I was cleaning his room last month." 6 years worth of clippings about his father, the successful CEO who was too busy to come home. The words hit Marcus like physical blows. "Sarah, Let me finish," she said, holding up a hand. "I'm not telling you this to hurt you. I'm telling you because they never stopped loving you, never stopped hoping you'd come back. And seeing you today, I couldn't take that hope away from them again." Marcus sank into one of the room's plush chairs, running his hands through his hair. "I convinced myself I was doing it all for them," he said quietly. "Building the company, securing their future. I told myself they'd understand when they were older, that they'd be proud of what their father had accomplished. But today, sitting here, listening to them play piano, hearing about their lives, none of my accomplishments mean anything compared to what I missed." Sarah sat in the chair opposite him. "You know what's ironic? You succeeded. You built your empire. You're the brilliant Marcus Thompson, tech visionary, business mogul. But you could have had both. We never needed the empire, Marcus. We just needed you." "I know that now," he said, his voice cracking. "God, Sarah, I know that now. When I saw you all on that plane, it was like waking up from a 6-year dream. Or maybe nightmare is a better word. The question is," Sarah said carefully, "what happens tomorrow? After the competition? Are you going to disappear back into your world of board meetings and business deals? Because if you are, tell me now. I won't let them be hurt again." Marcus leaned forward, his eyes meeting hers. "I want to be part of their lives again. Real part, not just child support payments and birthday calls. I know I don't deserve a second chance, but if you'll let me, I want to try. I'll move heaven and earth to make it work this time." "Those are just words, Marcus. We've heard them before. Then let me prove it with actions. Starting tomorrow at their competition. And every day after that, for as long as it takes to earn back their trust. To earn back your trust." Morning arrived with the soft glow of dawn breaking over Lake Michigan. Marcus had barely slept in his own room 2 floors down, his mind racing with thoughts of the conversation with Sarah and the day ahead. By 7 a.m., he was back at room 1508, knocking softly with a tray of coffee and hot chocolate from the hotel's cafe. Sarah opened the door, already dressed in a navy blue blazer and pencil skirt. "You remembered," she said, eyeing the hot chocolate with a small smile. Competition day hot chocolate had been their tradition since the twins' first recital. The suite was alive with nervous energy. Emma was practicing her piece silently on the desk, her fingers moving through the motions while she mouthed the notes. Jack sat cross-legged on the couch, eyes closed, headphones in, listening to recordings of his piece one last time. "Mom, my hair won't stay right," Emma called out suddenly, abandoning her silent practice to fuss with her carefully curled dark hair. "I've got it, sweetie," Sarah replied, but Marcus stepped forward. "May I?" he asked hesitantly. "I used to be pretty good at this." Sarah paused, then nodded. Marcus moved to help Emma, his fingers remembering the motions from years ago when he used to help with her hair before school. It was like muscle memory, twist, pin, spray, just the way she'd always liked it. "Perfect," Emma exclaimed, examining herself in the mirror. "You didn't forget?" "No," Marcus said softly, meeting Sarah's eyes in the reflection. "I didn't forget anything." Jack removed his headphones, watching the scene with careful consideration. "Dad," he said suddenly, "can you help me with my tie? Mom tries, but she never gets the dimple right." The request, so casual yet so meaningful, made Marcus's heart skip. "Of course, buddy." He moved to help his son, noting how Jack stood straighter, trying to match his height. The Windsor knot came together perfectly, the dimple sitting just right against the dark blue silk. "You look very handsome," Marcus said, adjusting the tie one last time. "Very professional." "Like you," Jack replied quietly, and Marcus had to blink back sudden tears. Sarah cleared her throat. "We should head down. The car will be here in 10 minutes to take us to the Symphony Center." As they gathered their things, sheet music, competition numbers, Emma's emergency hair supplies, Marcus's phone buzzed. The Anderson group had sent an ultimatum: either he showed up for the rescheduled meeting this morning, or they were taking their business elsewhere. Billions in potential revenue hanging in the balance. Marcus turned off his phone without even reading the full message. In the elevator, Emma's nerves finally surfaced. What if I mess up? What if I forget the middle section? What if... "Hey," Marcus interrupted gently, kneeling down to her level. "Remember what we used to say before your first recital?" Emma's eyes widened. "The magic words." "The magic words," he confirmed. "Want to say them together?" She nodded eagerly, and in unison they recited, "Music comes from the heart, not just the hands. If your heart is in it, your hands will follow." Sarah's breath caught audibly, and even Jack smiled a little. They'd said those words before every performance until Marcus had stopped coming to the recitals. He hadn't known they'd stopped using them after he left. The hotel's black car was waiting outside, sleek and professional. As they settled in, Marcus noticed Jack's hands shaking slightly as he clutched his sheet music. "Jack," he said softly, "would you like to hear the magic words too?" Jack hesitated, then nodded. Together, father and son whispered the familiar phrase, and Marcus watched as some of the tension left Jack's shoulders. As they drove through the morning Chicago traffic toward the Symphony Center, Marcus looked at his family, Sarah reviewing the competition schedule, Emma practicing her hand movements in the air, Jack staring out the window but with a new calmness in his expression. For the first time in 6 years, he was exactly where he needed to be. The Chicago Symphony Center buzzed with nervous energy as young musicians and their families filled the historic venue. Emma clutched her music folder to her chest, eyes wide as she took in the ornate architecture and crystal chandeliers. Jack maintained his composed exterior, but Marcus noticed him tapping his foot in that same anxious rhythm he'd inherited from his father. "Thompson, Emma and Jack?" A coordinator approached with a clipboard. "You're in the green room with the other performers. Parents can take their seats in the auditorium." Emma's grip on her folder tightened. "Mom usually comes with us to the green room," she said, a tremor in her voice. "Of course," the coordinator smiled. "One parent is allowed." Before Sarah could move, Jack spoke up. "Dad could come too. He's never seen the green room before." Sarah and Marcus exchanged surprised looks. "I think that's up to the coordinator," Sarah said carefully. The coordinator glanced between them, sensing something significant in the request. "Well, we can make an exception. Both parents can accompany them for a few minutes." The green room was an elegant space with plush velvet couches and a beautiful grand piano where some contestants were doing last-minute practice. Photographs of famous pianists lined the walls, their faces seeming to watch over the nervous young musicians. "Emma Thompson?" Another coordinator called out. "You're on in 3 performers?" Emma's face went pale. "I don't think I can do this," she whispered. "There are so many people out there." Marcus knelt beside her chair. "Hey, remember this morning? Where does the music come from? The heart, she replied automatically. That's right. And your heart is so full of music, Emma. I've always known that even when I wasn't here to see it. You've got this. Sarah joined them, smoothing Emma's hair one last time. Your father's right, sweetheart. Just play it like you do at home. Like when you're practicing in your pajamas with bedhead, Jack added, earning a small laugh from his sister. Emma took a deep breath, squaring her shoulders. Okay, I'm ready. We'll be right in the front row, Marcus promised. Just look for us if you need to. As Emma was led away to prepare for her entrance, Jack's name was called. He would be performing 2 slots after his sister. The boy's calm facade finally cracked a little. Dad, he said quietly when Emma was out of earshot. Did you really watch all our recital videos? Every single one, Marcus answered honestly. I know it doesn't make up for not being there, but I never miss seeing you play, even if it was just on a screen. Your Bach piece. I've watched you practice it 15 times. Jack's eyes widened slightly. You counted? I counted everything I missed, buddy. Every recital, every performance, every milestone. I kept track because even though I wasn't there, I never stopped caring. Sarah watched this exchange with an expression Marcus couldn't quite read, but there was a softness in her eyes that hadn't been there before. The first notes of the performance before Emma's drifted in from the auditorium. Jack straightened his tie, the one Marcus had helped him with, and said, "We should get to our seats. Emma will freak out if she can't find us in the audience." As they made their way to their seats, Marcus felt his phone vibrate again in his pocket. Without checking it, he knew it would be about the Anderson deal. 6 years ago, he would have stepped out to take that call, promising to be back in time but knowing he probably wouldn't make it. Today he turned the phone off completely. They settled into their front row seats just as the current performer was finishing. Sarah sat between them, and as the applause died down, she whispered, "Thank you for being here. Really being here." Before Marcus could respond, the announcer's voice filled the hall. Our next performer is Emma Thompson, age 11, playing Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major. Marcus watched as his daughter walked onto the stage, her blue dress catching the spotlight. She looked so small next to the massive grand piano, but as she sat down, he could see her mouthing their magic words to herself. Then her fingers touched the keys, and the world seemed to hold its breath. The first notes of Chopin's Nocturne filled the concert hall, delicate yet confident. Emma's small fingers moved across the keys with grace that belied her age, each note ringing clear and true. Marcus felt his chest tighten as the melody swelled. This wasn't just playing, this was storytelling through music. From his seat, he could see Emma's profile, her face serene in concentration. She wasn't the little 5-year-old struggling through Twinkle, Twinkle Little Star anymore. She had become an artist in her own right, painting emotions with sound. Halfway through the piece, Emma glanced toward them. Their eyes met for just a moment, and Marcus saw her smile slightly, her confidence visibly growing. The music took on an even warmer tone, as if his presence had somehow made the notes glow brighter. Sarah reached for his hand unconsciously, just as she had done at every recital they'd attended together in the early years. When he squeezed back, she didn't pull away. As Emma played the final passage, the entire audience seemed to lean forward in their seats. The last note hung in the air like a suspended drop of gold, and then, silence. Perfect, breathless silence before the audience erupted in applause. Emma's face broke into a radiant smile as she stood and curtsied. Marcus was on his feet before he realized it, clapping until his hands hurt. He could see tears in Sarah's eyes, matching the ones he was trying to hold back. But there was no time to dwell on Emma's triumph. Jack was up next. As Emma made her way off stage, Jack was being led to the wings. They passed each other with a quick high five, a gesture so natural and supportive that it made Marcus's heart swell with pride. And now, the announcer's voice returned, Jack Thompson, also age 11, performing Bach's Prelude in C major. Jack walked onto the stage with measured steps, every movement deliberate and controlled. Where Emma had been all flowing emotion, Jack was precision and focus. He adjusted the bench with mathematical exactness, placed his hands on the keys and began. The Bach piece was technically demanding, requiring perfect timing and control. But Jack played it with a maturity that transformed the technical exercise into something profound. Each note was crystal clear, each phrase perfectly balanced. Marcus watched his son's face, seeing his own determination reflected there, but tempered with something he himself had always lacked, peace. In the middle of a particularly complex passage, Jack's left hand faltered slightly, barely noticeable to anyone who didn't know the piece intimately. But Marcus saw Jack's jaw tighten, saw him fight the urge to stop and restart. Instead, he did something remarkable. He took a deep breath, remembered the magic words they'd shared in the car, and let the music flow through him. The recovery was flawless. The rest of the piece soared, Jack's fingers dancing across the keys with renewed confidence. When he reached the final measures, he didn't just play them, he owned them, making Bach's centuries-old notes sound fresh and alive. The applause for Jack was just as enthusiastic as it had been for Emma. As he stood to bow, Marcus saw something rare and precious, a genuine, unguarded smile on his son's face. Jack's eyes found them in the audience, and for the first time since Marcus had appeared on the plane, his son's gaze held no reservation, no guard, just pure joy. Emma was bouncing in her seat, whispering, he did it, over and over. Sarah was openly crying now, and Marcus didn't even try to hide his own tears. They weren't just proud parent tears, they were tears of redemption, of connection restored, of music healing what time and absence had broken. As Jack made his way back to their seats, Marcus realized that he'd just witnessed something more valuable than any business deal, more precious than any amount of success. He'd seen his children shine, not just as performers but as themselves. And he'd been there, really there, to see it happen. The awards ceremony was held in the Symphony Center's Grand Reception Hall. Emma and Jack stood together, their competition numbers still pinned to their clothes, waiting as the judges prepared to announce the results. Marcus and Sarah stood behind them, close enough that Emma could reach back and grab both their hands. In the junior division, the head judge announced, "We have a remarkable situation. For the first time in the competition's history, we have awarded first place to two performers who demonstrated exceptional skill in different ways." Emma's grip tightened on Marcus's hand as the judge continued. First place is shared between Emma Thompson, whose emotional interpretation of Chopin moved our entire panel, and Jack Thompson, whose technical mastery of Bach showed remarkable maturity. The twins looked at each other in shock before breaking into huge grins. Emma launched herself into her brother's arms as the audience applauded. Sarah was crying again, and Marcus felt like his heart might burst with pride. As they made their way to accept their awards, matching crystal trophies that caught the light, Marcus's phone buzzed one final time. He pulled it out to see a message from his assistant. Anderson Group signed with our competitors. Deal lost. Estimated value, $2.3 billion. Marcus looked at the message, then at his family. Emma was holding her trophy up to the light, making rainbow patterns dance on the wall. Jack was actually smiling, a real, unguarded smile as he showed his trophy to Sarah. And Sarah. Sarah was looking at him, waiting to see what he would do. He deleted the message without responding. "Hey," he said, gathering his family's attention. "How about we celebrate? Anywhere you want to go, anything you want to do. This is your day." "Really?" Emma's eyes lit up. "Could we go to the skydeck?" Jack's always wanted to stand on the glass floor. "The Willis Tower?" Sarah raised an eyebrow. "Marcus, don't you have to get back to your meetings?" Marcus shook his head. "No more meetings. No more missed moments. I've already called my board chairman. I'm stepping back to a strategic advisory role. Someone else can handle the day-to-day operations." Sarah's eyes widened. "Marcus? I mean it, Sarah. I've spent 6 years chasing success and missing everything that matters. Today, watching them play, seeing who they've become. I don't want to miss another moment. If you'll let me, I want to be part of their lives again. Really part of their lives." "What about your company?" Jack asked quietly. Marcus knelt down to his children's level. "The company will be fine. But you two? You're irreplaceable. I can't get these years back, but I can be here for all the years ahead. If you'll have me." Emma threw her arms around his neck. After a moment, Jack joined the hug too, still holding his trophy carefully. Sarah watched them, tears in her eyes but a smile on her face. "The skydeck it is then," she said softly. "As a family." As they walked out of the Symphony Center into the bright Chicago afternoon, Marcus Thompson, the CEO who had everything and nothing, finally understood what true success meant. It wasn't measured in dollars or deals, but in the sound of his children's laughter, in the way Sarah's hand found his as they walked, in the simple joy of being present for the moments that mattered. The city stretched out before them, full of possibilities, and for the first time in 6 years, Marcus was exactly where he belonged. Hey everyone. If you enjoyed this story and want to support the channel, you can now show your appreciation through YouTube's Super Thanks feature. Just click the thanks button below this video to send a tip. Your support helps us create more content like this and keeps these stories coming. Every super thanks means the world to us, and we're incredibly grateful for this amazing community. Thank you all for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.